today you'll be doing a lecture for John Moores University.
Yeah.
What will your lecture outline today?
I'm going to be talking about what it's like as a legislator. The laws that Parliament passes are handed out as a statute set in stone, but in truth Parliament is a revising body, and the people who are the legislators come from all walks of life. So by explaining my own personal experiences in a non-partisan way, I hope to illustrate how the law comes about, what the influences are, what the pressures are on ministers, on members of Parliament as they're actually passing law. And hopefully entertain at the same time.
What do you hope to achieve with the lecture? What do you hope for the students to get out of it?
What I would really hope for is that students coming to hear this lecture will go away with a better understanding of why the law turns out in the way that it does, how it comes about, so that when they're then either as lawyers or judges in the future, when they are interpreting that law, they'll at least have some understanding of how it's arisen. In particular, if I can encourage them to go and visit the legislature and see it in action, there's really no better way to get an understanding of how it works. So if I can sort of leave them with a sense that the legislators are real people, they have all sorts of different attitudes to the work that they're doing, they bring all sorts of different experience and skill with them, skill or lack of it, and all of that feeds into the mix of the legislature itself.
What gives you the edge over the other candidates? Partly
the experience I had when I was a minister in government. I think that's why the Labour Party chose me as its candidate. This is a brand new role. It's not something we've ever tried before in British politics. It concentrates in the hands of one individual, quite a high degree of power and influence. And I have had experience as a minister of being responsible for the management of budgets, for the oversight of big government departments. I think most importantly for me, and why I feel confident enough to put myself forward, is that I spent 4 years in Northern Ireland as a security minister responsible for policing, and I was accountable to the press, to the public and to Parliament for the role that the police in Northern Ireland were taking. And this was at a very controversial time, shortly after the Good Friday Agreement. So I believe that gives me a set of experiences that are almost unique in this election, and I hope that that they will prove worthy and of benefit to Merseyside.
What are the key issues that need combating on Merseyside in regards to crime?
Well, one of the first ones is resources. We're seeing a dramatic reduction in the amount of resources that Merseyside has as a police force. That would be something I would want to raise with the government to see if we can't make a case for Merseyside to receive more resources before any further steps are taken regarding budgets. I feel very strongly that for some communities on Merseyside, gun and gang and violent crime is destroying the neighbourhoods, and therefore for me that's got to be a top priority, tackling those kinds of crimes. And then working together in partnership. When you've got a reducing budget, the most effective way to maintain the best standards of policing and crime reduction is to work in partnership with the other agencies, because the police can't deal with crime on their own. Some crime is better dealt with by local authorities. Some crime is better tackled even in what is taught in schools. And the title itself includes the word crime, so it's not just police and crime commissioner. I think that gives the commissioner the opportunity to go and knock on the door of some of the other criminal justice agencies, the likes of the Crown Prosecution Service, the prisons, the Youth Offending Service, to make sure that as far as is humanly possible, we have the most efficient partnerships in place, so that instead of just talking about partnership as a word and as a policy, we're actually delivering it on the ground. And I know that is true in the majority of cases right across Merseyside. But that doesn't mean that there aren't areas where we can't improve.
Isn't it dangerous to politicise our police force?
That was one of the reasons why the Labour Party in Parliament opposed the introduction of elected commissioners. But we lost that argument. The government of the day had the votes in Parliament and have enacted this. So we've got an election. And the Labour Party takes elections very seriously. So they went through the process of selecting a candidate, and they've put forward the person they think is the best one for the job. And now that we're at that place, my view is we need to consider what can we do constructively with the role. There are dangers. One of the real dangers is that a commissioner strays into interfering with the operational and professional independence of the police. That's a lesson I learned how to do. I learned how not to do that in Northern Ireland. So I believe I start with the advantage of understanding the role a bit better because I've been in a similar situation, although not entirely identical.
What would you say to people who aren't planning on voting?
That they're missing out on an opportunity to influence who is chosen for this important position. I can understand people who are anxious about it, who believe that there are risks, and there are, but nonetheless the election is going to take place. And particularly if they are Labour voters, if they stay at home, the chances of the other parties winning increases. Now, once elected, I'm pretty clear that a commissioner can actually, to some degree, set aside their party mantle, because there's no whip to this job. It's very much a job that you can develop in your own style. And so I strongly believe people could vote for a candidate like me who's had some experience of walking that minefield of maintaining the independence of the police whilst being publicly accountable and doing it in a non-partisan way. And people could vote for a candidate like me and be confident they were voting for the best person for the job, irrespective of the fact that I happen to be a Labour Party candidate.
Do you think that a lot of people will vote for the candidate because of the policies or because of party labelling?
I think it's inevitable that a lot of voters on Merseyside will vote for the party label, because it's many of them, there's 1 million voters. Now, those 1 million voters don't know any of the 6 candidates, not as people, not as individuals. They largely don't know our backgrounds. And as is the case in most British elections, you will vote for the person who is supported by the party that you most closely, personally identify with. So if your personal values are those that are supported by the Conservative or the Liberal Democrat or Labour, you will tend to vote for that person. In the case of this election, I do think it's one where, given the chance, voters will also exercise their judgment and vote for the best candidate.